Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and today we have my weekly picks, starting off with week one. Football season is back. I know you're as excited as I am, and I think we've got a great slate of football games for week one, too. They do this every year. They do a great job of getting everybody hyped for week one. And we got a lot of good games. We've got some overseas in Brazil. They say that there's not going to be any green that can be worn, and they're both wearing green, which is wild to me. But let's get right into it. If you like these videos, don't forget to like, comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of my picks, and subscribe for more. I'm going to be doing a picks video every week, going through my picks. I go through score predictions, how I feel against the spread, and then straight up as well. So I go through everything. I'll usually do like a player of the week in a recap video, and then I also keep track of my record so I can let you know how well I've done throughout the year. Obviously, no games yet, so I'll show last year's, how I did last year at the end of this video. But let's get right into it. Starting off with Chiefs Ravens. This was a really tough one for me. This is probably game of the week. This is, you could say, AFC championship matchup potentially with the Chiefs, where the emergence of how well their defense has been playing really shows. You have some nice additions with the Chiefs and Xavier Worthy, but you do lose L'Jarius Sneed. So are the Ravens going to be able to keep up? You have Mark Andrews coming off an injury, and you acquire Derrick Henry. How is that going to work going up against the Chiefs? And I think this would be an easy one where you're going to have an opportunity to pick the Ravens, who acquire Derrick Henry. You're able to get +3. I think it's a great pick, but it's just so difficult to go to bet against the Chiefs. So I'm taking the Chiefs 24-20. That's taking them against the spread. If you look, the way the helmet works, the helmet's on the side of the spread that I'm taking, and then the spread is the home team's always on the left of your screen there, and the -3 is always for that home team. It's the spread for them. So I'm taking the Chiefs, though, 24-20. This one really could go either way. And honestly, betting odds, I would probably rather take the Ravens just because, again, I'm high on them getting Derrick Henry. I don't know why people don't think that that's going to have an impact, but they run the ball well. And normally it's Lamar Jackson, but now you have a guy he can be capable of being the best running back in the league. He's getting older, but he can still do it. Chiefs 24, Ravens 20. Going into the next one, into Brazil. We got the Eagles Packers. I'm taking the Eagles in this one. I think it's early on. I was kind of going back and forth. It's a neutral site game. They're calling the Eagles at home. So I think they factor that in when they do the rankings. With the Eagles acquiring Saquon Barkley, I honestly think that's probably their biggest, the biggest impact there. You've got, it's just a huge move for me. And going up against the Packers, they have Jair Alexander and they have a pretty good DB room in general. So I feel like it's going to help shut down the receivers, but you're going to have to stop Jalen Hurts with his legs as well as Saquon Barkley. So the quads in the backfield are going to be going absolutely nuts. And I think with the spread being only I think -2.5 is a little too close for me. I know a lot of people are down on the Eagles, and I kind of am too. But being in Brazil, I don't think anybody's really going to have a massive advantage. So I'm taking the Eagles in this one, 31-24. There's another one. I could see it going either way, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers win. And honestly, if I'm a betting man, this is another one where I'm kind of looking and going, I can get the Packers at 2.5 against an Eagles team who, in theory, got worse in every way except for the addition of Saquon Barkley. You lose Jason Kelce, you lose some key pieces on the defense. Obviously, Hassan Reddick was probably for the better with his contract situation and how that's going now. But I'm taking the Eagles, and I'm taking them against the spread in this case. Again, I don't love it, but that's what I'm picking. That was my final answer. Next, we go Saints-Panthers. I think probably put this game maybe closer than it should be. I'm really low on the Saints this year. I'm really low on the Panthers this year. These are both teams that they both might not win 5 games, 5 or 6 games. So you just look at their schedule, and I honestly think I put too high scoring of a game But I don't think their defenses are going to play well because it's tough to think of a name on the Panthers defense now that Brian Burns is gone. Saints, I don't know. I felt like it was going to be just an average scoring game. So I ended up going with 24-17. I thought, the Saints, they have Chris Olave. They have Juwan Johnson looked good last year. They have Alvin Kamara. Derek Carr is still the quarterback. I don't think he's a horrible quarterback. I don't think he's great either. Those guys are going to put up some points, right? But then the Panthers, I think they'll just stay in it somehow. So I'm doing 24-17, Saints taking down the Panthers. Then the Giants. The Giants at plus 1.5 is crazy to me. I think they're underrating what Sam Darnold can do. He's going to be throwing it to Justin Jefferson, and he's going to be handing it off to Aaron Jones. And the Giants, their best receiver is Malik Nabers, who's a rookie. We don't know what he's going to be in the NFL yet. And his best running back is new to the situation or to the system, Devin Singletary, who's not a great running back anyway. I think the Vikings defense is always going to perform well and force turnovers. Giants might be able to get down the field a couple times. That's why I got 13. You might get a couple field goals. The Vikings might fold, in the red zone one time and they'll have to put up a field goal, but I think they'll be able to put up points because I trust Sam Darnold to keep the team in games. And when you're playing against a team like the Giants where they're just not very good, I think that he gives you the opportunity to win the game. So I'm taking the Vikings 24-13, blowing the spread out of the water, not even close. I think minus 1.5 for the Vikings is kind of criminal, but you could look at Daniel Jones. People like to do the stats side by side with Trevor Lawrence and Daniel Jones and show, look, the stats are pretty close. Maybe they're just as good or whatever, but that's not true. So Vikings 24, Giants 13. Next, Bengals, Patriots. The Patriots might be one of the worst teams in the league this year. I would say the Patriots, the Panthers, the Commanders are all possible teams that could have the worst record. Giants, we just talked about. I think they're all going to have the worst record. I don't think it's difficult to say. I think you could put Jake Browning in for this game, and I think they'd win, I don't know, maybe 21 or 24-13. Obviously, Burrow hasn't gotten to play much with his injuries. Jamar Chase finally back at practice, but is he going to play? We don't technically know yet. So T. Higgins is still the one. You have Zach Moss and Chase Brown in the backfield. I just think this is an easy win for the Bengals. And 8.5 is a big spread week one, especially with Jacoby Brissett at the helm on the other side with the lowest interception percentage of all time, tied with Aaron Rodgers at 1.4% interception, which is a completely useless stat that I didn't need to bring up in this video, but I saw it and I went, you know what? I should include that in the video. So I'm taking the Bengals over the Patriots. I'm talking about this one for too long. But Bengals win. That's enough. Falcons, Steelers. I was surprised they were favored by as much as they are because I think the Steelers have a really good defense. I also think the Falcons are very underrated this year, and I think they're kind of getting more hate than they deserve because they're in such a shitty division and because, there's the whole thing of Kirk coming off the injury, and then you've got, they drafted Penix too. What are they going to do? And I think people forget that Drake London was a good receiver last year. Kyle Pitts has a whole lot of potential, but he hasn't shown it yet. Bijan Robinson has the potential to be the best running back in the league. Algier has the potential to be like a starting back in the league, in my opinion. I think he could, like on a team like, for instance, the Bengals we just talked about, where Zach Moss and Chase Brown, like if they don't draft Chase Brown, I think Algier would start over Zach Moss for me. So I think Algier could start in the league. You got both of them in the backfield. You have Raheem Morris running that offense through Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not a great quarterback. He's not an amazing quarterback, but what he can do is get the ball to the playmakers and make accurate throws. In the past, he showed that, in prime time and in clutch situations, he hasn't been great, but he kind of broke that mold last year. So I think in an early game against the Steelers, where they have no idea what the hell they're doing with their quarterback, obviously they named Russell Wilson the starter, but I just think there's too much shit going on over there. They have 3 running backs, they have 2 quarterbacks, and one of the quarterbacks is almost a running back too. George Pickens is your best wide receiver, and there's just a lot of weird stuff going on over there. Pat Fryermuth's been kind of underwhelming for me, in my mind at least, so I think their defense is just going to have to carry the game, and I think I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble stopping the run, and that's going to result in the Falcons winning 20-13. Colts, Texans. This is another one where I think I like the Colts this year. I really do. I think they'll be okay, but unfortunately, because of the division that they're in, and their schedule and how it lines up, and with the not being able to know how Anthony Richardson's going to be, I think the 20 is fair there. And is Anthony Richardson going to stay healthy? How is their defense going to perform? You've got so many receivers. I can't even name them all. Let me try. Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell. Oh, I'm missing somebody. There's another big one. There's just a lot of receivers, and there's a lot going on there. But I think the Texans prove that they're a great football team, and I think they're going to take advantage and put up a lot of points on this Colts defense. I think the Colts will be able to put up points with Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, all the guys we talked about. But I don't think they're going to be able to compete there with the Texans, especially early on. So I'm taking the Texans 35-20. I mean, I'm just thinking you add Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, Will Anderson after being a great team last year. So kind of scary. I think Stephon Diggs might be one of the worst signings. There's my hot take for the video. I think Stephon Diggs might be one of the worst signings of the offseason because I think he's going to cause a lot of problems. I think he would have been perfectly fine saying, okay, it's Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz. Could have kept Noah Brown in there, who I think is a fine third option, and then you'd be happy with that. But they decide to go for Stephon Diggs, who I think is going to demand too much attention. And they have a great room, so hopefully it'll work that the room will convert to accommodate Diggs rather than Diggs try to change the room like he has in Minnesota and in Buffalo. But we'll see what happens. Texans 35, Colts 20. I'm taking them in the spread. Now, this was an interesting one here. This is really, 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 really interesting to me. I think 6.5 is way too much for Buffalo. A lot of people are lower on them. Their wide receiver one is Keon Coleman, unless you want to include Khalil Shakir. I really like Dalton Kincaid, and I think he has a possibility. If Keon Coleman shows struggles early, Dalton Kincaid will be the wide receiver one in a situation like in Kansas City, where basically Kelsey kind of ends up being the wide receiver one. Obviously, it's Rashee Rice, but I think they could be off to a rough start early. The injuries that they've dealt with on their defense and the players that they've lost on their defense, I think the Cardinals show up and have a surprise for them and at least keep it close. So I think against the spread, I just think 6.5 is too much, but they are still the Buffalo Bills and they are still the Arizona Cardinals. There's a reason the Arizona Cardinals had the 4th pick last year, and there's a reason the Bills are always in a deep playoff run conversation. So this is maybe a bit of a hot take, but it just seems like a layup here. Like if there's one game where the spread is going to be ruined, I think it could be this Bills-Cardinals game. So I'm taking the Bills 24. Still, they got to win it. They're going to win. I feel like that's a layup to get that right, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals are able to cover the 6.5. Bears-Titans. This is another one where I look at the history and I go, well, there hasn't been a single rookie quarterback in a start in week one. I forgot when it was since. I think it was since 2000 or whenever it was. It was quarterbacks are 0-14-2 or 0-14-1 in their first start. Starting in the first game in the rookie season. So a quarterback hasn't won yet. So you're going to see that my some of my stuff here is interesting because I have the Bears winning. I also think this is a very winnable game, but the spread is 4.5. And I just think that that's too much with the Titans. I don't love the Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears situation because I think they're kind of a similar group there. But you have, I actually really am a fan of Will Levis. So I like that. You get L'Jarius Sneed, who I think is one of the better corners in the NFL. And then you have Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Boyd at wide receiver. So I just think that whole, and you have Chigoziem Okonkwo, who I only really wanted to say that name because I feel like I can say it right. And you could comment down below if you think that I pronounce that wrong and maybe do that hyphen bullshit that makes you pronounce it right. But Yeah, I'm taking the Titans against the spread just because it seems like this is setting up to be like Will Levis already has a year of experience. He also has three great receivers. He has a two-headed monster in the two-headed teenaged boy in the backfield. That's probably not a way to put that, but either way, I should just quit talking about the Titans. I think could be in this game, and I think 4.5 is too much for a rookie quarterback. Obviously, the Bears coming off of one of the best defenses in the league through the last 6 games last year, and then you have, I mean, we don't have to talk about the Bears. They have Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, who was a top tight end last year. I like to put him at like top 7. I think that's reasonable, and I think most people would agree with that. You can argue in the comments down below, but you have DeAndre Swift, who I think is a perfect fit to be little bit more of a receiving threat for a guy like Caleb Williams, and then the offensive line is just performing better and better. So I'm taking the Bears to win it, but I'm definitely very skeptical about it, and I think it's going to be a rocky start for both teams because the Titans have been a team that have just had to rely on pounding the rock with Derrick Henry. And now they have to do a full 180 and be a passing team because Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard make pretty decent like special teams / receiving backs that are, more on the agile side. Not to say that, they can't lower their shoulder or anything, but that's kind of what I see from them. So I'm taking the Bears 17, Titans 13, and then the Titans obviously covering that spread just as kind of a safety blanket as far as my record goes. Because again, I think they could win it, but I'm pretty high on the Bears this year, so I'm taking the Bears. Next, we have the Dolphins Jaguars. I'm low on the Jaguars this year. They are one of those teams. I think I've talked to some people about the Saints too. Is just one of those teams where I have no idea what they're going to be because Travis Etienne was kind of lackluster last year. You kind of lose your receivers to where you have Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk, and is there somebody else? I think they have another decent receiver too, but Trevor Lawrence really hasn't done the best. I'm interested to see in how the Dolphins defense performs though, losing Christian Wilkins. What is their defensive line really going to be? I just think their offense is going to be too dominant with name a position. They got a weapon, I guess maybe not tight end, but having 4 potential starting running backs in your backfield in Achane, Mostert, Jeff Wilson, and Jalen Wright. And then you've got Tyreek and Waddle are still there. So there's a lot. And 28 seems like a fair number. 17, 3.5 is just too close for me. I don't think the Jaguars are really going to be close in this game. That's why I have them losing by 11. So the Dolphins win 28-17. Seahawks Broncos. This is another one where I just have no fucking idea what's going to happen because the media is trying to get you to like Bo Nix and they named him the starter and this is Sean Payton's favorite quarterback. And I'm thinking, Sean Payton did really do well with a quarterback that can throw on time in Drew Brees and a quarterback that can throw on time in this guy, Bo Nix. So, and then you have the Seahawks kind of having a rocky season last year. Can they win it? I just don't expect Bo Nix to win in his first game. I really haven't liked what I've seen from Javonte Williams in the backfield. I think you've got some good guys over there in Cortland Sutton. You lose Jerry Jeudy, who I hate anyway. I don't think he's very good. So I'm taking the Seahawks, but again, I think 5.5 is a bit too much of a spread. And I hate how I've kind of liked how Bo Nix looks. You just have to see him do it in the league. So that's really what it's going to come down to. So I'm taking the Seahawks in this one. We have the same exact score as that Bears-Titans game, but I just kind of had the same feeling about these. I think you're going to have some quarterbacks off to a rocky start, and I think the Broncos defense, Pat Surtain and company is going to help try to slow down that Seahawks offense. Although I am very high on Kenneth Walker, although he's had kind of some struggles through the years, so that definitely makes it an interesting situation. But I'm going to take the Seahawks. Looking at it now, I definitely think the Seahawks could cover this 5.5 spread. Kind of second guessing myself here, but I'm going to hold to it. Seahawks 17, Broncos 13, covering that spread. Then Chargers, Raiders. I hate this because I love Gardner Minshew so much, and I don't think Jim Harbaugh should get off to a great start this year. And the more I look at it, I go, boy, I could get Antonio Pierce and that whole squad. Now you have Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins on the defensive line. Zamir White looked really good last year. Devontae Adams. You have Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. I'm going, why? I should change this. Actually, you know what? Hang on a second. Yeah, you know what? I just did that. I just changed it. I talked myself into it. I go, all these people, I love Gardner Minshew. I love Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, Zamir White, Devontae Adams. We'll see what happens. I think he'll just be good naturally. And then the defense, Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby is just scary to me. And I think the Chargers are going to be more run heavy. So I think the Chargers are going to be able to just run the ball and put up points. So that's why I put them at 20 initially. And then I looked and I go, they're only going to get 7 with Gardner Minshew, who got the Colts, almost to the playoffs last year as a backup. Now we're going to take the Raiders in this one. I just had a big change of heart there. So Raiders win 21-20. Cover that spread and all. You saw it here first live, just changing my prediction mid-video. So Raider Nation, I think I'm rooting for you this year. You'll be one of my AFC teams this year because I'm a fan. Next we have Browns Cowboys. This is another one where like everybody's super low on the Cowboys. I'm like, how can you get the Cowboys at plus 2.5 when Deshaun Watson comes back and he hasn't looked good since he was on the Texans receiving massages? So I just think you got to go Cowboys in this one. And the team looked better with Joe Flacco last year, and they don't have Joe Flacco this year. So, and you don't have Nick Chubb. Like, I don't understand what the odds are here, what the deal. I mean, you get Jerry Jeudy, but that doesn't seem to be too much of an improvement to me. Amari Cooper's still the guy. And then David Njoku is just going to outperform everybody's expectations. You have Myles Garrett on the defense, who I believe should have been an MVP candidate, because if we're talking about how we're not going to get into it, but talk about how the most valuable player, I think you saw how bad the team was when he was out, and it was more important when he was out versus Deshaun Watson. So you want to say that the defensive end isn't as important as the quarterback, the Browns would say otherwise. But in this case, the Cowboys will say otherwise and win the game and shut down all the haters, because I don't understand what is they've been 12-5 the last 3 years, and everybody thinks, oh, they're just going to fall off a cliff because I don't even know the reason. So I'm taking the Cowboys in this one. I'm not like incredibly high on the Cowboys. I think the NFC East in general has a fairly easy schedule. So I think it's going to be pretty easy to get back to, double-digit wins for teams like the Cowboys and the Eagles. But I think this is going to be one of them, just because I don't really have faith in Deshaun Watson, and he's making money. He doesn't really need to play football anymore. He can just kind of rake in the cash. So Cowboys 20, Browns 17 covering the spread. Buccaneers Commanders. This is another very interesting thing. Why is this game so close, Jerry? Well, it's because I think they're not going to know how to play defense for Jaden Daniels, and I think he's going to make moves with his legs. I think having not Antonio Gibson, they have Austin Eckler now as a guy to dump the ball off to. You've got Brian Robinson, who I don't think is amazing, but Terry McLaurin's still over there, who I think is going to be scary, as he always is, scary Terry. And I think the Buccaneers are going to be a good football team. That's why I think they're going to win. I just think Commanders in the first game, nobody knows what to expect. Why can't they get 3.5? I believe, is it Cliff? Cliff Kingsbury's the OC over there? Is it? Oh boy, I'm probably screwing that up, but that's okay. I think the Commanders could keep it close, and I think they'll surprise some people. I don't think the Commanders are going to be great. I talked about them earlier as being a bottom 5 team. So Buccaneers 24, Commanders 21. Excuse me. Lions 21, Lions 31, Rams 21. People are forgetting the people that the Rams have acquired in Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, who I don't know, is Braden Fisk. He's not going to fill in the Aaron Donald role by any means, but you have Jared Verse. Everybody's talking about, well, not everybody, but I'm hearing about their defensive line maybe not being good. I don't really get that, because I think the Lions are a great football team. They'll put up a lot of points. I think the Rams are too. Stafford's back. You have Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams showed out, and they drafted Blake Corum. So how's all that going to go? I'm not sure. And that's why I'm a little bit more surefire about the Lions, especially at home. The Lions have 14 games in domes this year too. So I think that's a good reason for the Lions to win a lot of games, because they're used to that. So I'm taking the Lions in this one, 31-21, and then obviously covering that 3.5 spread. Then we get into the last game of the week, where people have the 49ers favored by 4.5. I look at the Brandon Ayuk situation, and I look at the Trent Williams situation, and I look at Aaron Rodgers being back, and people kind of underestimating that. So I have the Jets winning this game, just as kind of like there's been some shit going on in the 49ers room, which I actually set this up before the Ricky Pearsall news, which he's the most badass ever, and I'm glad to have him on my taxi squad in my Dynasty League. But Ricky Pearsall is a dog, and it could have been something that brought this team together and would be a potential reason that I'd be, flipping back. But I think the Jets are just going to come out hot. Breece Hall was one of the best running backs in the league last year. And then to top it off, you still have, Garrett Wilson. You acquire Mike Williams, who I think is kind of an underrated signing, although he's spent a lot of time injured and never really proved to be a one. I think he's just that big target that they need over there in New York. So I think he could offer value. I don't think he's going to be like this superstar or anything, but I like that. So I'm taking the Jets. I'm going to trust Aaron Rodgers and to take down Brock Purdy and the 49ers. And I'm taking them 24-21. And they do cover the spread, obviously, because they're plus 4.5. That to me is a bit of a no-brainer. Maybe I'm wrong for saying that, but the Jets also still have a great defense. That was their whole thing last year, is like, wow, Robert Saleh, and the year before, he puts together a great defense. They just need to figure out the quarterback and the weapons, and they've helped with that. So I'm taking the Jets 24, 49ers 21. They get a win early on, and that brings us to last year. This was my record last year, 156 and 100 straight up, 131 and 125 against the spread. And then if you paid attention last year, I have what I was calling the better rushing team record. So it was if usually there was one team where the either the rushing yards was significantly higher, or at the very least, it was mainly going based on yards per carry, but it was kind of a combination. There was usually one team that was clearly better. If the yards were tied, I'd pick the better yards per carry. If the yards per carry was tied, I'd pick the better yards. So that kind of situation. So, but that team was 173 and 83. Now you could look at that and go, well, Jerry, that's because usually when you have a big lead, you would start running the ball to run the clock down, and then naturally you'll have a better game. But the defense can also plan for that, and then they would decide, well, they're running a lot, maybe we should shut that down, and that hurts your yards per carry. So that's why I thought in a world where everybody thinks that this is a huge passing football league, I wanted to keep in mind that look at how well the team that ran the ball better did in 2023. So 173 and 83 is a damn good record. So let me know what you think down below. That's going to be it for this video. Comment any discrepancies or things that you think I'm wrong about down below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.